Yoshi has come a long way from being sacrificed into bottomless pits to now starring in his very own games. From puzzles to platformers, Yoshi's been at the heart of some pretty wild adventures, and it all started with Yoshi, which released on June 1st, 1992 in North America, December 14th, 1991 in Japan, and December 10th, 1992 in Europe and in Australia. The first couple Yoshi games are very loosely Yoshi based. This is a simple puzzle game where you control Mario, but you have this little picture of Yoshi in the corner. You turn plates from side to side in order to match Mario characters together in order to destroy them. It works similar to Tetris, where you keep matching enemies until you can't anymore and when you reach the top of the screen. This released for the NES and the Game Boy, and both versions are pretty similar except for a few minor differences. In the NES version, you can hold up to 8 enemies on one plate, where in the Game Boy version, you can only hold 7, but that's just due to hardware constraints. But overall, this game is fine. On the NES and Game Boy, simple puzzle games were easy to make and really big hits. It was a much simpler time back then where all you had to do was have something that was endlessly playable and somewhat addicting. But as far as puzzle games go, I can't say this is bad, but I also can't recommend going out and trying to play it. It's available on Switch Online, so if you want to check it out, go for it. Yoshis Cookie, released on April 13th, 1993 in North America, November 21st, 1992 in Japan, and April 28th, 1994 in Europe and in Australia. Similar to Yoshi, this is another puzzle game that was a really strange choice to make. Your job is to keep matching cookies, and the gameplay is really simple. You line up rows or columns of cookies to clear them off screen. This is another game where you play as Mario, but it's titled Yoshi, so it's a really weird mix. This is like an alternate universe's Dr. Mario, but instead of being a doctor, he's a chef.
He's gonna call me an idiot sandwich, isn't he?
There's really not a lot to this. There's no princess to save or island to rescue. It's just you, Mario, and Yoshi clearing a lot of cookies. It's really easy to pick up and play, and it's surprisingly addictive once you start, and it was the kind of game you could play for 5 minutes or 5 hours depending on how hooked you get. Honestly, this isn't even as good as Yoshi is. Making another Yoshi puzzle game within a year of the original doesn't really make sense to me. But for the time, considering how easy it was to develop these games, I can't blame Nintendo for just trying to pump them out. Even though this game should be called Mario's Bakery rather than Yoshi's Cookie, I think it's fine. If you want to check it out, go for it. This isn't available on NSO, and it's not really worth trying to find it either. Yoshis Safari, released on September 17th, 1993 in North America, July 14th, 1993 in Japan, November 19th, 1993 in Europe and in Australia. Yoshi Safari is a game that takes Yoshi in a completely different direction. Unlike any other Mario game prior to or since, this is a first-person shooter where you play as Mario, who rides on Yoshi's back and blasts enemies with a Super Scope, the laser gun that is popular from being an item in Smash Bros. The story is pretty straightforward. Mario and Yoshi are on a mission to take down Bowser and his minions while recovering the magical jewels of Jewelry World. The combination of a shooter and the classic Mario universe made for a weird crossover, but there's something pretty cool about Mario riding a Yoshi into battle while shooting lasers. This game required the Super Scope, and for people who actually had it, it was a fun departure from the normal games. It was an interesting concept that combined Yoshi's cute charm with intense first-person shooter gameplay, especially during the 90s when the technology was still evolving. Getting to blast through enemies in a Mario game is not what I've ever expected to play in an actual release, but here we are. But requiring the Super Scope was a double-edged sword. Having to hunt down a copy of this game and a Super Scope means that not everyone can experience it well, and everyone who did is probably dead now.
Oh, I got blasted by an Italian man on a dinosaur.
The idea of Mario wielding a laser gun was definitely a bit strange, and while the novelty was fun, it didn't have much replay value once you beat it. It's like a fever dream of Duck Hunt, but you get to stare at the back of Yoshi's head the whole time. It's called Yoshi Safari, but you don't really play as Yoshi either. You just ride on his back and blast things in your way. Overall though, if you can collect all of the pieces required to play it, it's decently fun. I can't say it was a standout game, but I think it's worth trying. Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, released in North America on October 4th, 1995, in Japan on August 5th, 1995, in Europe on October 5th, 1995, and in Australia on December 31st, 1995. Now we're getting into the real Yoshi games. Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island is an incredible platformer where Yoshi takes the center stage. You get to play as Yoshi, who carries baby Mario on his back as you journey to rescue baby Luigi from the clutches of baby Bowser.
What is this, an evil daycare?
The main gameplay mechanic is egg throwing, where Yoshi swallows enemies and turns them into weapons. He throws them to solve puzzles, defeat enemies, or reach new areas. And while this is technically a prequel to Super Mario World, I don't understand how Nintendo saw the incredible success of Mario World and thought,
let's make something new entirely.
For being a Mario spin-off, the story is surprisingly deep. Baby Mario and Baby Luigi are being delivered to their parents by a stork, but Baby Bowser's forces attack, kidnapping Baby Luigi, and it's up to Yoshi and the other Yoshis on the island to reunite the brothers and take down Baby Bowser. Along the way, you'll encounter all sorts of adorable enemies, puzzles, and incredible bosses. I'm a big fan of 2D platformers, and this is an absolute gem. The art style looks almost hand-drawn, and it makes you feel like you were playing inside of a living, breathing storybook. The iconic moveset of swallowing enemies and turning them into ammunition was a great idea and super satisfying. Yoshi's controls added a whole new level of strategy to the platforming with his flutter kicks that combined great with egg throwing to make a game that really stood out from the source material. I understand that Yoshi was really popular in Mario World, but this took creative liberties in every possible way to make this stand out. The level design was incredibly creative, offering a perfect balance between exploration and challenge with loads of hidden secrets to discover. I love this game so much, but it still had some issues. Carrying around Baby Mario was great, but if you get hit, he floats away in a bubble and starts screaming the most horrendous cry. It is not a normal scream. The sound keeps me awake at night to this day. But that's about it. This is otherwise a perfect Yoshi game. People look back at this as one of the best games released for the Super Nintendo, and I get that. The combination of Yoshi's new moves, the ability to turn enemies into projectiles, and the beautiful world make this game a one-of-a-kind experience, and something that everybody has to play at least once. Yoshi's Story released on March 10th, 1998 in North America, December 21st, 1997 in Japan, May 10th, 1998 in Europe, and May 11th, 1998 in Australia. Yoshi's Story took the foundation from Yoshi's Island and gave it a nice twist. This game is a side-scrolling platformer set in a pop-up storybook world which looks surprisingly good. You control a team of differently colored Yoshis who have to come together and save the world after Baby Bowser turned the entire island into a storybook. The gameplay revolves around eating fruit, which fills up Yoshi's happy meter, and you need to eat enough fruit in each stage to move on. I look back on this game with a lot of nostalgia. I beat this game when I was 4 years old, and it was the first game I ever beat through by myself. Aesthetically, it looks great, and it's a shame that it got pushed to the side so hard. But I can understand why it did. This game came out for the N64, so instead of having to compete against games like Mario World, it was up against games like Mario 64 and every new 3D platformer, which was the dominating market trend at the time.
We know Yoshi's swag, but do we know Yoshi's story?
The story is simple but fun. Baby Bowser stole the Super Happy Tree, and it's up to a group of 6 Yoshi to get it back. Each level is filled with fruit, enemies, and secret pathways, all designed to keep Yoshi moving forward through their quests. The pop-up book aesthetic makes it feel like you're playing through a children's story, which helped it really stand out well, especially compared to other games that Yoshi's been in, like Yoshi, and other games on the N64 in general. Looking around the world for hidden fruit was surprisingly fun. It was a change of pace from Yoshi's Island, where it was a race to the finish, and it really encouraged you to explore every nook and cranny of each world that you were in. My real problem with this game though is that it is incredibly easy. I beat this game when I was 4 years old. I was just learning to get dressed by myself, but I was somehow able to beat all of Yoshi's Story. If that doesn't describe how easy this game was, I don't think anything will. Especially compared to games like Super Mario World and Yoshi's Island, it was really mindlessly simple. Going back and playing this game recently, the happy meter makes this game feel really repetitive after a while. There wasn't any depth to the game beyond the art style, and compared to Yoshi's Island, this game is incredibly short. Yoshi's Island had 48 separate levels, where Yoshi's Story only has 24. Now you're supposed to explore each level for a while, so I can understand how they thought they could get away with adding less content. But considering that Yoshi's Island had double the amount of stages, they needed to add something to make this game longer. The game feels like it was half finished. If this game had 24 more levels and it made it more difficult in the back half, it would be one of the best Yoshi games overall. But considering how short it is, it's a fun game, but not one that sticks with you long after you beat it. That being said, I do recommend checking it out, but don't expect too much. Yoshi Topsy Turvy released on June 13th, 2005 in North America, December 9th, 2004 in Japan, and April 22nd, 2005 in Australia and Europe. Topsy Turvy came with a built-in sensor, which means you physically had to tilt your console in order to move Yoshi. Now, they were absolutely testing out a gimmick here, and it was fine. During this era, there weren't a lot of other games that allowed for motion control, so it really helped it stand out. By tilting your console, you would help Yoshi move from point A to point B. Topsy Turvy's story was pretty simple. Yoshi's Island had been turned into a storybook by the spirit of the island.
Man, not again!
To bring everything back to normal, Yoshi had to collect happiness medals and appease the spirits by completing challenges in each level. It was nowhere near the most groundbreaking plot, but it was fine enough. This was more so a gimmick than anything else. else. It does really stand out because for the time it was different and innovative, and it added a unique twist on the traditional platforming. As a child, the game was fun. It offered a new way to interact with a game. Having to move the console around was kind of fun, but if you were going in expecting something similar to Yoshi's Island, then I can understand it would be disappointing. And the tilt controls didn't really work that well. It felt more frustrating than fun, especially in the more precise sections where accurate tilting was key. And the levels were extremely short and really repetitive, and it made it feel more like a gimmick than a full-fledged game. I have to say it was a good experiment, but it didn't have any staying power in the long run, and I can't say this game was worth checking out anymore, but if you do own it already and it works, you might as well give it a go. Yoshi's Touch and Go released on March 14th, 2005 in North America, January 27th, 2005 in Japan, May 6th, 2005 in Europe, and May 19th, 2005 in Australia. Similar to the last title, Yoshi's Touch and Go is a gimmick game. It was made to showcase the DS's new features, primarily the touchscreen. It follows a very similar plot to Yoshi's Island, where a stork drops Baby Mario and Baby Luigi, and it's Yoshi's job to reunite them. Using the touchscreen on the DS, you have to draw paths out of clouds for Yoshi and Baby Mario to be guided on, and it's really simple. It more feels like a tech demo for the DS with a Yoshi coding, but overall, it's not bad. For an early DS title, it made great use of the DS's enhanced hardware strength. It looks like Yoshi's Island, but in a good way. It was created by the same team who made the Super Mario Advance series, so considering they had already made a Yoshi's Island remake for the Game Boy Advanced, I'm not surprised they were tasked with making this. Even though it was incredibly simple, it was still a really good time. Something about drawing paths and letting Yoshi fall to his doom is infinitely replayable, even if you get bored after 5 minutes. But now that the DS is an older console, tech demo type games like this aren't really that great. Tech demo games like this aren't that fun to look back on so many years after release. As the DS aged, more and more games came out that used the touchscreen way better than this game did, and created experiences that were enhanced by the DS's features and didn't just rely on them. But overall, if you're looking for a mindless DS game to play, this is a great choice. Yoshis Island DS released on November 13th, 2006 in North America, March 8th, 2007 in Japan, December 1st, 2006 in Europe, November 17th, 2006 in Australia. Yoshis Island DS built upon the original Yoshi's Island by introducing a fresh new twist: more babies.
What do you think? I'm made of money?
Now, this is a sequel to the original Yoshi's Island and not a port with new features. It kept the same core mechanics from the original. You would throw eggs, platform by kicking your legs, and swallow enemies whole. But the new babies are really how they added the change of pace here. Each baby will grant Yoshi unique abilities. Baby Peach will allow him to float in the air with an umbrella, or Baby Donkey Kong will give him extra strength. It was a great way to add variety to the original Yoshi's Island formula without doing anything that would change the game all that much. The biggest thing they could have changed about this game was that they should have named it something else. They should have called it Yoshi's Island 2 so it sounded more like an actual new game. Yoshi's Island DS sounds like it's Yoshi's Island for the DS. But besides the terrible name, Yoshi's Island sticks to the same formula as the original. Baby Bowser's up to no good again, and the Yoshis are tasked with not rescuing just Baby Mario and Baby Luigi, but all of the other new babies as well. Like I said, I loved the original Yoshi's Island, and this felt right at home. It gave the series a fresh new spin, especially for people who had already mastered the original. The visuals looked just as good as they did on the Super Nintendo. It took advantage of the DS's second screen to add more depth to each level. And for fans of Yoshi's Island, this was a really fun experience. Extending the legacy of the original onto a sequel was a great idea and what they should have done with Yoshi's Story. When you take a near perfect game like Yoshi's Island and you try and make a sequel, a lot of people are going to see flaws right out of the gate. The main problems I had was switching babies felt really tedious and unintuitive, and it broke up the flow of the game too much. Having the wrong baby when you had to solve an obstacle didn't feel fun, it felt annoying every single time. And compared to the original on the Super Nintendo, the controls didn't feel as crisp. I would die a lot more playing this than I would during the original, even though this game is slightly easier. And as far as level design, it wasn't as good as the original. Having to juggle between so many different babies meant there were going to be obstacles that only certain babies could solve, which meant that during the game design they had to add these elements into the courses, which made the level design just feel flat overall. With the original Yoshi's Island, you didn't have to worry about that. All the levels would have the same mechanics with a few new ones here and there. Even with the problems, the game still gets too much hate. Of course, it's not as good as the original, but it's still a great time. And it's definitely more of a Yoshi game than Yoshi's Cookie. So if you have a copy, I'd recommend checking it out. Super Mario 64 DS released on November 21st, 2004 in North America, December 2nd, 2004 in Japan, March 11th, 2005 in Europe, and February 24th, 2005 in Australia. Now, before I get kicked in the chest, I understand this is not a Yoshi game. But of course, my rebuttal is, who do you play as at the beginning of the game? This green goblin. It's Super Mario 64 with the added twist that you can now play as Yoshi, Luigi, and Wario. So this is at least 25% a Yoshi game. If you like Super Mario 64, this game is probably a good time for you. It's not as crisp or tight as the original, but has a lot of changes that let it stand out. Now, I know this is slightly out of order and it's not really a Yoshi game, it's Super Mario 64, but considering this is the first time that you can run around and play as Yoshi in a 3D environment, I felt like it needed to be talked about. Of the 4 characters available in this game, he has the highest jump, but he can't punch or kick, which means that he's kind of useless otherwise. It's Super Mario 64, available on the DS, and it was a launch title, so overall, play this game. You have to. And you also have to subscribe. I'm legally obligated to make you. Yoshi's New Island, released on March 14th, 2014 in North America and Europe, July 24th, 2014 in Japan, and March 15th, 2014 in Australia. As senior citizens probably say, out with the old and in with the new. Yoshi's New Island brings back the classic Yoshi platforming formula where you're still throwing eggs, bouncing on enemies, and collecting coins. This time in a shinier, more 3D world on the 3DS. One of the big new features was the introduction of giant eggs. Yoshi could throw these to smash through walls or take down large obstacles, which was a weird twist. It's a classic Yoshi game with a strange upgrade. The story sticks close to the usual formula. Baby Mario and Yoshi must reunite with Baby Luigi after he's kidnapped. Now let's play a game. Who kidnapped Baby Luigi? A. Baby Bowser. B. Bill Cosby. C. Kamek, or D, Bill Cosby. If you picked anything besides A, you were wrong.
Aw man, I thought I was right.
While the plot isn't groundbreaking by any means, it's full of familiar comfort from the Yoshi series. It's got a cute and colorful world filled with lighthearted charm that we've come to expect from the series. It has the same platforming mechanics that made the original Yoshi's Island and Yoshis Island DS classic games. And the 3D visuals looked a little weird at first, but I've gotten used to it over the years. Maybe it's because I'm old, but I prefer the pixel art style of the DS games as opposed to the new 3D style of the 3DS. I'm not saying it looks bad by any means, but I just prefer how the DS games look. It's the same thing with the Mario and Luigi series. The upgrades visually more look like a lateral move than anything else. But the changes they added to the game were really fun. As weird as it is biologically, the giant egg mechanic makes for some fun moments. If you were a fan of the original Yoshi's Island or Yoshi's Island DS, this is going to be something that I think you should check out. But the game was pretty basic. It didn't really bring anything that new to the table. Yoshi's Island DS added the new babies, which was controversial, but it still was something new that they tried. And the only real new thing they added here was the giant eggs, besides some minor changes. It was also a far easier game than either of the 2 previous Yoshi's Island games, which made it more feel like it was a game for beginners than a game for longtime fans. And this is where I think the Yoshi's games started to become more of an entry-level platformer series. All of the rest of the Yoshi games we've gotten have been good, but this was really where the series started tipping towards entry-level gaming, and started the spectrum of Yoshi being the easiest platformers, Mario being the middle of the line, and Donkey Kong being the hardest. I love having a split variety, but I wish Yoshi games could have the option to be a little bit more difficult. This is a good game, but it just didn't wow me like other earlier Yoshi games did. If it was a little bit harder and pushed boundaries a little bit more, I think it would be an outstanding title. But if you can grab it, I absolutely recommend trying it out. Yoshi's Woolly World, released on October 16th, 2015 in North America, July 16th, 2015 in Japan, June 26th, 2015 in Europe, and June 25th, 2015 in Australia. Yoshi's Woolly World is a platformer that takes the graphics up to 11. The entire game world, including Yoshi himself, is made out of yarn, fabric, and other craft materials. And the game looks absolutely stunning. This was originally released on the Wii U, and it looks incredible there. And it even got ported to the 3DS with added content that makes it a standout title on that console as well. Yoshi can use his yarn to tie up enemies, create platforms, and solve puzzles. It's a really creative take on the Yoshi formula and a beautiful game overall. The story is simple, but it took a good turn from the originals. Kamek has unraveled all the Yoshis and scattered the yarn across the different worlds. It's up to you to knit them back together and stop Kamek's evil plan. This time you just play as Yoshi. There's no babies involved, which is a nice change of pace. You get to navigate without fear of that horrible, horrible sound the babies make. To be fair, I've never dropped a baby myself, so I can't say that it wouldn't make that noise in real life. Along the way, you get to explore some beautifully designed worlds, all made out of yarn, felt, and other crafts. The new art style was a fantastic change. The handcrafted look gave Woolly World a completely unique identity. It was a great change of pace from the usual visuals we would get from a Nintendo game. It wasn't Nintendo's first attempt with a yarn-based game, with Kirby's Epic Yarn coming before this, but Yoshi really took that idea and made it his own. The gameplay was smooth, creative, and full of clever challenges. It even added the ability to play co-op with a friend, which added more fun to the mix. I prefer to play this game on the Wii U, but it plays really well on the 3DS. It even got a couple of new levels starring Poochie, which was a great touch, even if this version is the lesser of the two. But just like Yoshi's New Island, it was really easy, particularly compared to other Yoshi titles. This is where that difficulty change I was talking about earlier really set in. Along with adopting a much softer aesthetic, they made this game extremely easy to pick up and play. It's more of a comfort, relaxing platformer, so if you're looking for a serious challenge, this might not be the game for you. But as far as games go overall, even though it wasn't super difficult, it really stands out as one of the best platformers on the Wii U. The art style and simplicity really carry it, but I think it was a great time to this day. And if you have it on Wii U or 3DS, I recommend checking it out. Yoshi's Crafted World released on March 29th, 2019 worldwide. Building upon what Woolly World set up, Yoshi's Crafted World took the DIY aesthetic and cranked it up a notch. This time, the world is made out of everyday materials like cardboard, paper, and string. The gameplay revolves around exploring these awesomely designed levels while collecting flowers, red coins, and solving puzzles while fighting enemies similar to any other Yoshi game. The new twist to Crafted World though is that you can flip the levels around and explore the backside of stages, revealing hidden secrets and collectibles and adding a lot of depth to the game. Literally.
Boo! Boo!
Stop bullying me! The story is pretty basic. All of the Yoshis live together on an island where the Sun Dream Stone, a magical artifact, grants peaceful life. But Kamek and Baby Bowser show up to try and steal it and scatter it into gems across the crafted world. It's up to Yoshi to travel through the various themed worlds and recover it before Baby Bowser can get his hands on them. None of the Yoshi games are going to have that engaging of a story, but overall this one is probably my favorite. It could absolutely be a recency bias, but I think that the team up between Kamek and Baby Bowser was just a good touch. The new depth the stages had added a lot of creativity to level design and made worlds that were extremely fun to play through. Just like in Woolly World, the crafted design makes every world look incredible. It feels like every single place you go is a little art project that you could almost build yourself. The ability to flip and explore them from different perspectives was a great, unique twist that added a lot of fun to the exploration. And just like in the last game, it was really fun to play this in co-op. Overall though, the game was just a bit too easy and it didn't offer that much of a challenge. It was even easier than Woolly World, which I think was a step in the wrong direction. I don't mind it being easy, but I think making it even easier than the last title was a bold move. Crafted World seems like it wanted to be accessible for anybody to play, which I think was a good idea in theory, but when you play it, it's really bland. You can beat this entire game without getting hurt pretty easily. And I don't know if it's just me, but usually Yoshi games have a pretty solid soundtrack, but this one literally made my teeth hurt. That's not an exaggeration. Whenever I play this game, my teeth hurt for some reason, and I think it's the music. I actually went to the dentist about this. It's only when I play this game and I don't know why. And the ability to flip the world around to explore different areas was a great idea. It feels most similar to Yoshi's Story, where you had literal layers of depth to the game, but after doing it for the 5th time, it feels kind of repetitive. But overall, if you're a fan of Yoshi games and you haven't checked this out yet, I recommend it. It's a visually beautiful, relaxing game. Yoshi's been through it all. From humble beginnings with Yoshi's Cookie to the stunning handcrafted landscapes of Crafted World, this guy has cemented his place as one of Nintendo's most beloved characters for a reason. And as always, thank you for watching. I hope that you and your family have an incredible rest of your day, and if you like anything that you saw here, please consider subscribing.